Dialogues. I'm Captain Preetham Madhukar, founder of Skills Beyond Education, a TEDx speaker, Ed Falcon Award for Mentoring. I'm also a stargazing guide and author of the book Three Culprits. But today I have a very interesting guest with me, Ritika Subhash, who's a parenting guide who helps parents, especially between 4 and 12 years, but also across spectrum. But that's one of her specialty. And she's an award-winning Karmaveer Chakra medal winner, and she is the founder of Parent Academy, a conscious parenting platform. And she has worked extensively with UK-based educational companies, and she hosts a very interesting podcast called Parenting Truth and Dare podcast. And Ritika, firstly, a warm welcome to you for taking time out and being here to share your nuggets of wisdom and experience for parents.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor to be talking to you. I know that you work in the space of bringing a lot of value to families, and that's something that I resonate with. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much. I would also like to thank all the listeners, viewers who have tuned in. Thank you for taking so much time out and hope you get some breakthroughs and insights today from our conversation. Maybe ask your questions in the chat box wherever you are watching this, and we'll be happy to take those questions. And I'll be happy to ask Ritika as well. So, Ritika, to dive into the topic, what kind of uh, challenges that you commonly see today in parents, especially those who approach you?
So challenges have always been there, right? And if you look at it at the core of it all, parenting is like any other relationship. So when you look at a relationship, there are certain nuances that everyone has to navigate. The only thing is with parenting, there is a generational impact in what you do. By that I mean that the way that our grandparents parented our parents had an impact on how they parented us, and how we were parented has an impact on how we parent our children. So this sort of continues, right? And we tend to carry forward a lot of pain or trauma or a lot of labels across generations. So this is where I come to the idea of conscious parenting, right? I'll come to all of the challenges, but at the core of it, when we become conscious, and by conscious, it simply means that you're in the moment, you're present in the moment, and you are understanding that what you're doing has certain repercussions. So that to me is being aware and conscious. And when you apply that to parenting, you end up solving a lot of your generational issues. So now coming to the kind of challenges that parents are facing, no prizes for guessing that the number one challenge comes out to be excessive screen usage. How do we manage our children's boredom? How do we, help them balance other activities, going out? And this has especially come after COVID. Once the closures have opened up, children have sort of gotten used to connecting on the net, and it's not all bad, but I think somewhere that balance was lost, and a lot of it is I think I would attribute to us parents also, because our children always see us connected 24/7, right? We're always responding to every other ping that comes to us. We're constantly connected at work. We are connected with our families. So when they're seeing that, that becomes their baseline. So when we are the ones setting the stage for all of this, it's really not fair to keep complaining that children are not, utilizing their time well. After all, they've gotten the devices from us. So this is the number one concern that comes. Some other concerns that come are also related in terms of behavioral challenges. As children are going through different stages and ages, of course, they go through a lot of changes cognitively, as well as, bodily they are changing, spiritually they are changing. So all of those things also add up to the changes in their behavior.
Yeah.
There will be some parts of their life when friends will become their most important sort of go-to person. There are other parts where they lean on their parents. So this is a constant push and pull, and for parents it's quite a struggle because they have to adjust to this flow, right? Sometimes the river is meandering towards them, sometimes it's meandering away from them. So just coping with all of that is not easy, and hence my sympathy and my empathy is with the parents. I feel that parents, as a community, parents are very, not supportive. We come into parenting without any training, and we are expected to do a fabulous job of it because it should come naturally. And some part of it does come naturally, which is the instinctive part. But from a relationship managed point of view, from the point of view of adding the right kind of values to the child's journey, from realizing that we are not the one who is going to dictate who they become or what they do. We have to sort of nurture the soil. All of this requires a lot of reflection. It requires a lot of controlling of one's own urges to live our life vicariously to our children. So all of that is something that I work on with parents.
Yeah, I think you captured it very well in a way about conscious parenting, right? A lot of things are very instinctive for parents, which is natural, and as especially early years, I think first 3 years are very instinctual. A lot of information is available, but as the children are growing up, there is very less parents are aware. Few parents are, of course, becoming more mindful, but as a population at large, there is still a lot of gaps with the children have to in a way bear, right? And we are also not living in the same kind of big communities or even warm neighborhoods where everybody were kind of involved in making sure the child grows healthy, and we are nuclear families, single parents, all the modern challenges adding to this. And I think one of the things that you mentioned, the top of the bucket list of problems of parents is screen time. And not just parents, but adults, everybody, we are there in it. But children, I think, bear the brunt of the social change on gadgets. And what are your own thoughts? I mean, before you ask, I have this, recently it came, so I thought I should share this. The parents were wanting, this is a teenage child, the parents want the child to watch less screen time, okay, do more homework time and study. And while the child is in the room, the parents want to watch TV and other things, right? There's always a background. So I was telling them that if you're not ready to sacrifice while the child is studying, right, how can you expect the child to sacrifice something that's so tempting?
Absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
it comes down to parents also in a way meeting halfway, doing their part of how they can help their child, right? So coming back to the screen time, uh, what strategies can parents employ? Let's maybe talk about young children, and maybe we'll come to the older ones.
Yeah. So there are some basic fundamentals that any parent can apply. It doesn't really depend on what age you are or what age your child is. I run this challenge, and I'm happy to share this challenge for free with all of your listeners, which is the RRR challenge, right? So the first R is you realize essentially what is your own screen usage. Okay. For that, you need to open the well-being app on your phone, and I'm only talking about phone here. Of course, you can also do that if there is a tracking mechanism for your television, for Netflix, whatever. But just looking at your phone to begin with, go to the settings and well-being app and try to track what your own usage as a parent is. Why I tend to tell the parents to do this is that okay, we realize there is a societal issue that is there. It is not just with my child, with your child. It's sort of there. It's pervasive, right? It's like the air we breathe. Everybody expects that this is the very normal thing that children will pick up the phone and they'll be on it, or when we are going out for dinners, and adults are doing their own thing, we can put the child. So let's just say that is the scenario. But first, let's become aware of what is our own device usage. Okay. The second way you can approach this is once you are aware, you can do some kind of a restoration of your own house, where I recommend you put three no tech zones or tech free zones in your house, right? It could be your bedroom, it could be your dining room. Sometimes just to lighten things up, I also say put that poster on your bathroom that this is a no tech zone. All of that, because this is the reality that we are working with, right? So create this poster which is simply a no tech zone. Just put a cross on it and just put it on 2 3 different doors in your house. It will just serve as a reminder, if nothing else, as a reminder for every now and then for you to even look up and say, okay, I have to be conscious, right? We are talking about conscious parenting. That means you have to become aware and be in the present moment. And the last art is Be Bonded, where I share a couple of videos. These are YouTube videos that I share with the parents to watch along with their children. Now, you may argue that why am I making them watch screen when this is about no screen? The reason I do that is because we have to talk their language, right? If our children understand the language of technology and they feel that when parents say it is too much of a burden, they are just lecturing us, all of that, why not come together and use these videos, these educational videos. In fact, there is a very interesting advertisement that came out sometime back called the indoor generation. So for older children, I asked the parents to watch the indoor generation with their kids, just so that you realize, right, what is it, what is being indoors constantly doing to our mind, our body, how is it disconnecting us from society. So it's just a conversation starter. So these three steps are literally the first step, I would say, when somebody comes to me, become aware of your own usage. Like, for example, for me, I'm in the edtech industry. I'm working in the parent academy, which is, I run it digitally. So my screen usage is quite high. And I have to be aware of that, right? I know that my work is fully online. So I have to mindfully disconnect myself every now and then, because otherwise there is no end to it. Similarly, sometimes even if our work is not primarily online, parents do end up doing a lot of like doom scrolling of social media, and they don't realize it. Sometimes that innocent 10 minutes of scrolling goes on to become a 2 hour long, a brainless activity. So just becoming aware of that is very important.
Nice. And
I think, yeah,
yeah,
and I think some other things just to add to that, if possible, delay giving the device as much as possible for you and for your family, right? Especially if it's a personalized device. If it's a common television in the house, I can understand it is very hard, or if it is some other media, but at least a handheld personal device, as for as long as you can avoid, it's best, because again, once you do it, then the journey is only harder. It gets harder. The journey is uphill from there. And once the child is used to it, it's very hard to really snatch it from their hand, because then you become the bad guy without putting the right context. So if you do this RRR challenge and you include your children in this, make them also actively participate in this challenge, things do change.
yeah, I think it's well addressed in a way because you gave some very wonderful points. I think the first R was realization, which I
Yeah,
like, and especially like the second R of putting all these notices on the no zone. Almost like banning the
yeah,
mobile devices entering this zone. So that's a beautiful, really good strategy, I think. And I think that's a nice one. And just to add to that, I always tell that do it as a challenge with your children, because adults, we also struggle with it, right? And
absolutely.
children love a challenge, adults love a challenge. Take it up as a challenge. Guys, let's not check our phones for the next 1 hour or next whatever time, right? And have a house rules and all these kind of things in a playful way. You can kind of build a little more. What I work on is will strength, because if you have a strong will, I've seen people with strong will, they can just stop, right? That's the power of will, not only to start habits, but they can just stop it at their will. And I tell that if children can be strengthened in their will, adults can be strengthened the will, then beating this kind of thing become that much more easier. And I think you captured it well about giving no devices as long as possible, at least delaying it. And my own thoughts are completely in saying that till they're 10, 11 years, try to avoid as much as you can. And then also in a phased manner, in a controlled manner, introducing and controlling that.
Yeah,
I wanted to
and
add something.
just to
Yeah.
add to that, you talked about will and willpower. I slightly differ on my opinion with that, because honestly, I've not been able to find the holy grail of willpower till date. All my life, I've been searching for it, and I feel somebody give me willpower, but it doesn't happen. Over a period of time, what I have realized is it's only about habits. The only thing in my control is the habits that I do, right? So if I have a certain habit which I get so used to that my entire body starts aligning with that, then I will do that. Whether the willpower is a physical entity or what entity, I've never been able to understand. But I'll just give an example. For instance, as a habit, when I drop my son to the bus stop every morning, this was a habit that I made, that instead of coming back home, I will go and take a walk. Okay. It just became the thing, right? And I did this in peak winters. I do it in whatever weather, unless it's really absolutely impossible to step outside. So I drop him and then I go to the park. Now that is sort of a habit stack that has helped me maintain a certain habit of, let's say, doing a certain number of steps. Similarly with something like screen time, the more that we put habits into it. So I'll give an example. When I used to take this walk, I used to gamify. I like to gamify things for myself. So just one day while taking the walk, I said, okay, let me count the number of people that are walking in the park and are looking at their phone. Okay. And I kept doing that for round one, round two. The statistic was quite staggering. Almost 90 to 95% people there, apart from those who are doing, let's say, yoga, they were in one corner, but those who were walking, most of them were looking at their phones. Now, I just did this for myself because now I'm very conscious, right? Every time I take the phone out while I'm walking, I'm like, okay, I've joined the statistic, let me put it back. So, gamifying things and making habits is, I think, one of the crucial ways in which parents can also change. And once they change, then they can have that authority to tell their child that you should change, right? Unless we embrace change and we constantly tell our children that you should change, I think that's a bit of a hypocrisy there.
Yeah, I think the way I prescribe will is uh, what I call will as effort, right? Any act of effort is an act of your will, right? And from that perspective, when I share my coaching programs, I say habits, discipline, grit, focus, reverence, also some way, all
Yeah.
come under the umbrella of will, right? So when you build your will, of course, I don't know what programs you've been in, but in my programs, there was this boy, young boy, teenager, and little bit you could say not, you could say grown to his full height, not strong enough, and little puny, but super intelligent, very smart, and physically not there yet, right? So I gave him tactics on how to build his willpower, right? He had not grown at all for quite some time, and every day he would do one push up, one pull up, one squat, right? And some days he would come up and say, "My grandmother is here, grandfather is here, I couldn't do." I say, "Stop the video right now, go and give me one push up, one pull up, one squat." Right? Every day, building his willpower with few other techniques. And in 2 months, he had grown over an inch. Okay, it
Wow.
might not be big for someone else,
Yeah.
but the child was not stopped growing, right, for 2 years after visiting as doctors and changing nutrition plan and this and that. In 2 months, to see himself, he felt like he was conquering Mount Everest. Right now, he's gone on to become much more stronger, and he's quite tall now. And that is the power of will, I say. Where there is a will, there is a way. And if you know how to master will, it will get you where you want to go.
Absolutely. I think I love the fact that you define will as a combination of all these things, right? It's action, it's effort, it's reverence, also, you mentioned.
Yeah.
And somewhere related to reverence, I would say faith, right?
Yeah.
Unless you work towards something with faith, you sort of, you give yourself those self fulfilling prophecies that this will not happen. But as long as you move with faith, things do change.
Yeah. In fact, talking about reverence, I connected to our word, right? The word that we give to ourselves. If I say, I want to wake up at 5 a.m., so today somebody else says they want to wake up at 5 a.m., they want to, or 6 a.m., I want to go for a walk. Is your body respecting your own words? I didn't speak those words. You spoke to your own body that I shall get up and go for a walk.
Yeah.
Right? There is no reverence for your own self when you are not having. Why will somebody else respect that word?
True.
And how do you respect someone else's word, or how you treat others, right? So that is also the moment we start keeping that word to ourselves. If I say I'm going to call you at so and so time, 3 o'clock, can I call you? Fair enough, 3:30. I don't get a call from so many people, right? then I know their will is weak and their word cannot be respected.
Yeah.
Right? So it's in a way that if we build this in children, there the way I give the example is if we look at a small baby, right? And the baby, I mean, let's say toddler or baby, and there is a bottle kept on a table.
Mm-hmm.
The child wants that bottle. Nothing is going to come in the way. If parents don't pull the child away, the child is going and getting that bottle.
Yep.
Absolutely in their will. Nothing comes in the way. Right? So the child is naturally gifted in their will. They are there. What we do as parents, we take them up from there and put them somewhere else. We keep breaking their will now and then. And if they're playing in sand, I've seen so many times they're playing in sand or whatever other toy. They're doing it for hours together. Parents get bored. The child is not bored. Parents get bored. They tell, you know what, take another toy. Why are you playing with the same toy for so long?
Mm.
Now the child is in the focus. What they are going to pay hundreds and thousands of rupees later to learn, the
Yeah.
child is already a master of it.
Yeah.
Right? We are taking the child, making it unlearn, and then later going into the repair shop and doing all this other work.
So what you actually said makes me think that maybe we are the ones that are sowing the seeds for children's, inability to embrace routines and boredom, right?
Yeah.
When you get that example that when they're playing with a toy and we say why don't you play with the other, I think where we come in is because we feel we've spent so much on the other toy, why not use that, why this one? So it is somewhere coming from our ego. But
Ego.
what how it may actually unpack in the child's psyche is that okay, I need to go from one thing to the other, without any continuation. It could be,
Yeah.
absolutely disrupted. So yeah, that's a very important thing to think about,
Yeah.
which comes back to the fact that we are sowing the seeds for whatever our children are manifesting. Of course
Absolutely.
there is a genetic aspect to it, of course there is a nature aspect to it, but the nurture aspect is also very strong.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is where, like, the work that you're doing and I'm doing in some ways, bringing that mindfulness is going to help parents become more aware. Hey, my actions have got a consequence. My actions have got some repercussions. Not today. I always say, look at your action from a 20-year scale. It's like smoking is like the example. Nothing happens. 1 month, 2 months. Hey, look, I'm smoking. Nothing's happening. Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
it's going to happen. Okay, it's 20 years payback time. Same for fitness. Oh, I've been going to 2 months in gym, nothing, my muscles are the same. Of course, payback is 20 years from now, right? So
Absolutely.
parenting is also in the same basket, I would say.
Absolutely. And the payback can be very heartbreaking, or it could
Yeah.
be very rewarding also.
Rewarding also. It's like a choice, right? If they become mindful of smoking and fitness and the benefits it can give,
Yeah.
same way if mindfully they start parenting and say, hey, this I would like to do, this I don't want to do, then they'll have less. Nothing is perfect. There is no perfect parenting, but
Yeah.
at least they will become less stressed out. And that, in fact, brings me to the second question I want to ask you:
Mhm.
is stress is so integral of parenting?
Mhm.
And so many challenges. What are your thoughts on stress, parenting stress?
So it's a big one, I think, and for a variety of reasons. So let's start with something that you threw some light on earlier, which was we are now living in largely nuclear setups, and we are living in urban, largely physically, emotionally disconnected setups. Which is definitely not the way that humanity has evolved, right? Over many, many centuries, over millennia, we've evolved as communities, and that's how we've thrived. Otherwise, our whole existence would come into question, and we'll be singled out and may not thrive. But human race has thrived because they learned how to make communities and make use of that. Very old adage, everybody has heard of it, that it takes a village to raise a child. But why is it that why is that so? I mean, it's not like individually we can't raise children, but the fact is there is so much of value in human connection. It can be relations, your blood relations. It could be your neighbors. It could be your friends. Any kind of community can add value to the growing up years. And what it really teaches young ones is that they are not alone in this world. There are people that have their back. There are people who care for them and who will make sure that no matter what they do or how they fail, they'll always have a home. They'll always have people who support them. So a lot of that is missing. And the way the society has progressed, we have dual earners who are both stepping out, and then the child is sort of either in a daycare or they are with a house help or they're with the grandparents. While all the support that you can get is good, some support is better than no support, but the excess of that is becoming where parents are also disconnecting with children, right? So once that disconnect happens and the gap starts widening, that's when you have all these reasons for stresses. So you talked about parental stresses. There are multiple reasons for that. There could be the fact that you're not able to communicate well with the child, you're not able to bond with the child is not listening to you, they're not behaving in accordance with what you think is appropriate. So anything and everything can cause stress. And on top of that, there are also one's personal ambitions, right? How do I want to appear to the society, or what are my goals in terms of my ambitions? How will I feel self actualized as a human being, not just as a parent? So all of these questions, when they start coming up and a person can't see the end and they can't see where the life is headed, I think it's a big stressor amongst modern parents. And I have seen, because I interact so extensively with parents, that this is also seeping in tier 2, tier 3 cities. It's also there because ambitions are growing everywhere, right?
Mm.
So everyone wants to do more, wants to achieve more, but they also have to balance, their parenting. They have to balance the child's growth. So it's always like this push and pull, because 30s and 40s and early 50s, when you are parenting, is also the time when you want to grow in your career.
Yeah.
So I think stress is galore.
Yeah. I think that's a nice point. Just to add a little bit to that is
Yeah,
like the village, it takes a village. We don't have that. Now I tell parents, can you create your village?
absolutely.
Right? So what I mean by that is get to know your children's friends and their parents, invite them over. It may not happen overnight, sometimes you may not get along, but there will be sets of people who you will get along well at some
Yeah,
point, right? And having that kind of bonding ecosystem, I remember when as young kids, nobody knew whose house we were going to eat dinner, because wherever we were, we would be eating dinner there,
yeah,
right? And because some neighboring auntie would be there and they're sitting there and she'll say, I'll cook the parathas or rice and we will eat them,
yeah,
right? So if you can create that kind of mini ecosystem, right, where the child is there, okay, you know what, don't worry, the child will eat here today, we will cook, and tomorrow some little stress can be taken off. Parents get a little bit freedom. Man, every time I have to sit and monitor the child, I get a little breather for myself, right?
hmm,
Somebody else has taken over my child who I trust,
yeah,
right? And similarly like that. So that kind of building ecosystem, maybe take my child down to play, while tomorrow I will take your child down to play and monitor, especially young children, or for older kids,
yeah.
have more exchanges. I think in some ways, I'm not saying it's going to remove all stress, but some time freedom you may be able to steal for yourself in that way.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important for parents, right? It's not just from a parenting point of view, but as a human being, you will thrive with more connections. You
Yeah,
will be able to share your own fears, your own apprehensions, and you will be maybe able to seek, more inspiration in other people. So why give up on that opportunity? I feel like being a parent and having a child is a fresh opportunity for you to build your own new circle of friends, your own new circle of, even interests.
yeah,
um, Many parents that I meet, they suddenly become very creative, or they reignite their creativity, which they thought they had only in childhood, and they feel now
yeah.
they can express this because now I'm doing it with my child, so I see I'm pretty good at it. In
Mhm.
fact, that's one of the reasons I started writing also. I write for children's books for young readers, and I don't have any education in writing. I don't have a degree in writing, but when I started telling him stories, making up stories, they started making sense to me, and I liked them. So I felt that okay, I have something where I can, be involved in storytelling. I can get more children engaged with this, and that's how even now, like I run storytelling sessions every week in my house, where the young kids of the society, they just come to me and we do an hour of reading and storytelling and fun, just pure fun.
Super. And I would like to thank all the viewers who may have joined in late, the listeners. Thank you so much for taking time out. And for those who are listening in still, I hope you're getting some amazing breakthroughs, some insights into parenting. I have Ritika with me, who's an amazing parenting coach. She runs the Parent Academy, and she's the winner of the Karmaveer medal in art and science of creator of the art and science peaceful parenting digital course. She's done many more things, and I'll be sharing some links in the comments later on for you to click and connect with her. And if you have any questions, meanwhile, drop it in the chat box so it comes to us now alive, and we can take a couple of questions as well. And continuing further, Ritika, is we spoke about parenting stress and anger and frustrations. And if you could share a little bit about the work that you do before we continue, what the art or science of peaceful parenting is, and the other work that you do.
Yeah. So I think the whole idea of this parenting academy and the parenting course came from the fact that when I became a parent, I realized that there is very little hand holding that you get in a formal way, right? Of course, there is so much support that you get from your parents, your in laws, and that's all wonderful and great. But to be fair to them, their own parenting knowledge is outdated by at least 30, 40 years, right? Because that's when they approached it. And while some fundamentals remain same, and that's where we should really learn from our elders, that's the best thing that we can do. But we also have to evolve with the times, and we have to figure out, okay, what works now? Generations have changed, and our ecosystem has changed. So our reality has changed, so to say. So in this reality, we have to navigate our own challenges of parenting as well as our relationships, our work, all of that. Then we have to seek some guidance. So I look for guidance at a lot of different places. I've done a variety of courses, both nationally as well as internationally. I studied the brain science by the Brain Coaching Academy in Belgium. I for my own understanding, I did a certification in child and adolescent counseling as well, even though I'm an engineer by training. So it's not something that I initially trained for. But because I was in this whole realm of understanding and becoming a better version of myself, as well as a better parent, I sort of educated myself throughout. So I felt, okay, I'm fairly aware of the fact that I need to learn about parenting. Hence, I went out seeking all of these different resources, which cost me time, which cost me money, which cost me so much of effort, because by nature I'm a learner. Okay, this is I have a love for learning as one of my core strengths. I've done a variety of strength finder tests, and this has come out as my number one core strength. So I am in that space, but there might be so many parents and so many people around me I saw who did not have that as their core strength, but they were struggling with parenting. Even people who understand child psychology, when it comes to their own child, they struggle, right? Because you need something catered and tailored to your own problems, and every household is different and all of that. So I said, all right, um, the situation is this, that everybody who becomes a parent is expected to do a great job, but nobody has the right kind of understanding around it. So this thing about learning and formally learning parenting kept coming in my mind. So hence the Parent Academy, which I feel is like a school for parents. It's like, come back to school again, right? Because why should we make it a taboo? Why should we say that you should know parenting, right? वो तो आना ही चाहिए. You're a parent, so it should come. Why should we have that constraint on us? When we go to school, we prepare for our exams, right? When we go to college, we prepare for our exams. When we go to work, we prepare for our deliverables. Then what is the big deal in saying, okay, I'm preparing for parenting, right? I'm getting ready to learn more. So when I started thinking about parenting, I said, okay, there is an art aspect to it, because it's a lot of subtle negotiations. It's a lot of all of that, but it's also a science, right? Because when I studied brain coaching, I understood that our brain is such a fascinating organ, and it is growing with us, and especially for children. Up until age 24, they are not even fully developed in terms of their executive functioning. Their full frontal lobe is not developed. So how can we expect children to make sane and thought through decisions at age 16, 17, 18, right? That's a very vulnerable age. So the first thing is helping parents realize that let's not have unrealistic expectations from our children. Let's look at the science. What does science say? Our children are not fully ready to take well thought through decisions till age 24. Hence, they need us more and more, but they need us more and more to be available, not to be overly involved and not to be a hands off parent. We have to be the right balance, which is available. So that is the science part of it. In the art part of it, I talk lot about effective communication, right? How do you communicate through your own entire body, your entire being, your face, all of that? Because even I, as a parent, sometimes struggle, right? When I'm triggered by something, I know that in that moment I've lost it and I will say something which I will regret later. So all of these things from a self awareness point of view, understanding what your triggers are, why you feel triggered, and then if you have already made a blunder, or if you have shouted at the child, then how do you make repairs, which is also a very important part of relationship management, right? Repairing what has been damaged. So all of those things are part of the art and science of peaceful parenting phase. The underlying theme being that we all deserve peaceful homes, we all deserve peaceful relationships, and if we work towards it consciously and conscientiously, we'll get there.
Super. Thank you so much for sharing amazing work that you're doing with parents. I think it's wonderful. And for parents who want to reach out and connect with Ritika, she's available and the links will be shared in the channel. Don't forget to follow this channel wherever you are. Don't forget to give us a like and a share if you're enjoying this. And thank you so much for taking time out here. We still have some more time to go and many more amazing questions coming your way. So stay tuned in. So, Ritika, you spoke about points like self care for parents in some ways, right? And what can parents do, and especially what a young set of parents need is probably different from older set of parents, right? If you could break it into these two halves and share some thoughts.
So, if I had to divide it like that, I would say the young set of parents actually, in terms of self care, need a lot more time for themselves. Like they need to feel that I have time, because if they are new parents,
Hmm.
then suddenly from an absolutely carefree lifestyle, and assuming this is first time parents, now they have come up to this highly responsible role, and it demands their time, it demands their effort, it demands their sleep, compromising on sleep, all of those things. So I think for newer parents, self care would mean some time to yourself. And how you could potentially do that is by what you said, like building a community of your own. If you have grandparents, or if you have parents who can help out, neighbors who can support you and maybe take charge of the child or their well-being while you take a quick nap, or you do what you need to do. If you want to go to the gym, then you have to have somebody taking care. If you need food to be on the table, then you need somebody to help cook it. So all of these things sort of come in that purview. Of course, some people will have the resources to employ, some may not. So it will differ on what your situation is like. But for the large part, I want to say that self care should not be misunderstood as a spa day, or a 7 day woman's only trip. I mean, it can be there, and I also take time now when my child is older. I take time to go on trips independently as well. But with younger parents, you need to let go of that perfect parent myth. You need to let go of that image that you see online, maybe of your friends, that they are having it all. Nobody is having it all. You can have a lot of different things at different times in your lives. Okay, you can have great career, you can have great relationships, you can have all of that. But if you expect everything to happen right now, today, full package, it may not happen, and then you are setting yourself up for disappointment. So the best way is to get real and to understand that self care can happen at home also. I feel, to me, like a good night's sleep is like the best self care that you can do for yourself. And how you do that, again, it depends, right? You need somebody to step in and take care of the child. Also, if you are able to do and pursue your own hobbies while you are on a maternity break or while you are doing other things, finding a group. So, why I recommend a group is because I feel that the willpower of a community is always greater than the willpower of an individual. So if let's say I want to be in a wellness program, if I simply sign up myself versus if I sign up with a friend who will keep me accountable, who will make sure I get up on time, who will make sure I reach there and don't miss my classes, there's a world of difference. So if you can find things that you can do together with other people, that will be great. One great act of self care is self learning. This is something that you, Captain Preetham, are really involved in, and I'm also involved in through the Parent Academy. That if you are if you are lost in any particular area of your life, you feel that I'm not enough, I'm not caring enough, I'm not getting cared enough. Whereas if you empower yourself with the right knowledge, with learning, with community, with the right mentor, all of this is all acts of self love and self care. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be burning your money on spa and this and that. If that's your jam, then great, but you don't really have to do this.
Yeah, yeah. I think you captured on many points. Just to add maybe a little bit, a couple of points is like it's you're not going to get time, especially for young parents. So you have to steal time, and it can be quite stressful not getting that space for yourself, right? Having some, I mean, having your parents, in-law, somebody else, spouse taking care can definitely give you a little bit of breather. And as your child gets older, getting some time out to do some activities for yourself, even maybe for a couple of hours, you've got some time out. Doesn't have to be your days together, and being mindful of that. And you will definitely get more opportunities as your child grows into the teenage years, where you can do a little bit of couple of days of time for out for yourself with your spouse. It doesn't have to be with the child all the time, and to also be mindful that as your child is becoming more freer of you, you don't keep encroaching their time now, to fill void that the child is now creating by separating out. They have their own friends now, and not to enter into them, that they are becoming their own being, and to not be mindful of that again in some
Yeah,
ways. Yep. And you also work a lot with communication and trust between parents and children, and if you can share. And before that, I would like to thank our viewers who have been listening in. I have an amazing guest today, Ritika, Subhash, who's a parenting coach who does a lot of work through our parent academy to help parents, and she's been sharing some amazing wisdom and nuggets so far. If you haven't caught us live so far, then don't forget to watch the recording. It will be available on my LinkedIn, YouTube, and other platforms as well. And if you have any questions, we just got a couple of minutes left. If you got any questions, drop it in the chat box. We'll be happy to take it up and share some thoughts. So, Ritika, continuing on this open communication between parents and children and fostering trust, if you could share some thoughts.
yeah. I think communication is a big one in terms of forming trust. Like it really is the foundation on which the building of the trust is sort of standing. And why I say that is we think that communication is probably about. I mean, largely what I've seen in families is communication ends up becoming very transactional, right? Did you have your lunch? Have you done your homework? Are you going out with your friends? All of those things. So these are all transactional questions. But what about the deeper connecting questions, right? For example, instead of asking, can you actually go ahead and build a time to share what your day has been like with your child, right? Because we are always expecting the communication to happen from them. We are asking questions and they are sharing. But why not flip it and say, okay, I want to share something with you? That will solve so many of your issues, because that will make one, it will make the child feel that okay, I'm valued, my parent wants to share something with me, maybe I have something to add to their experience. Second, it will really see help them see you in your authentic light, not as, that perfect human being who's infallible. you know they will also understand that you also are very human, and that you go through disappointments, you go through poor judgments,
Mm.
you go through all of these ups and downs, and you are looking to share them. So you're basically giving them the kind of foundation to become more emotionally open and emotionally intelligent about, even sharing what you are feeling. Again, it comes back to the fact that we expect the world out of our children. You should be sharing your thoughts, but are we sharing our thoughts?
Yeah.
You should be meeting your friends, but are we meeting our friends? You
Yes.
should be eating healthy, but are we eating healthy? You should be watching less screen, but are we watching? The whole idea of trust is, it is only built on congruence. Congruence means, are you walking the talk? Are you doing what you are saying or what you expect others to do? And children sniff it out like that. My son, I mean, as an example, if I take him, he'll pick it out like that, right? Why are you telling me to do this? I don't see you doing it, right? And then that makes me conscious that absolutely, that's true. If I'm not doing this, it's unfair to even say. So to me, this is a sort of, this is the basis of it all.
Yeah. I remember there was this doctor. I mean, as a joke apart, is like he was a smoker, and his he would tell the patients, "Take care, don't smoke, don't do this," and all that. And the patient was like, "Doctor, you're only smoking, and you're
Yeah,
telling me don't smoke, right?" And the doctor said, "Don't do what I do what I tell you."
yeah,
You
yeah,
know. So sometimes my son asks me, "You're telling me this." I said, "Yes, when you're grown up you can do, but right now you're still a child. You do what I'm telling you to do." Right? And of course we have a nice banter there, and then he said, "Okay, I will do it. I got few more years before I'm an adult." And
yeah.
yes,
And
it did.
that's another way that you can approach it, right?
Yeah,
Especially
that'd be
for
just
giving
another way.
time. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, there's nothing wrong as long as you are able to express yourself authentically. Like, for example, for me, I tell my son that, yeah, you're seeing me in front of the laptop, you're seeing me on this because this is my work. And maybe in your future you will also be doing some kind of work which requires you to be on the screen. I have accepted that, but that doesn't mean that you should start now, right? There, this is your time when it is in your control. Maybe tomorrow it is not in your control, so you can use that instead of shunning the child and saying, okay, how come you are, who are you to say this to me
Yeah,
and all of that. Instead of going in the defensive mode, you can really be authentic and say, okay, yeah, this is the truth. I'm not shying away from it, but the fact is, you still have few more years to see
yeah.
it. Yeah,
So I think, yeah, I think it comes down to different strategies. I think as long as parents can become candid and authentic with
yeah,
their children,
yeah,
right? Because if we are just telling some things, dodging it, defensive, then the child, like you mentioned, will sniff it out. They will be like, "Hey, you're not being authentic." But you candidly say, "Hey, I need to do this. I know I've done when my exams I was there. I have done my hard work, and now
yeah,
it's your time, whether you like it or not. And when you're done, you can also come out of it." Right? And teenagers understand sometimes they like a little bit of firm parenting. I don't know why.
yeah.
I met this. I was coaching this lady. She was in her 30s, and one of the things I was talking about firm parenting and things like that, and she mentioned that how I wish my parents were more firmer with me. She said I kind of resent them for that because they didn't. They gave me so much of freedom that sometimes I just wanted them to be strict.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
yeah. So I tell them that there is a space for being firm. There is a space for being more free and more freedom. And the real mindful parenting is learning, like you mentioned, the art of parenting, which is to know when to do what and
Exactly.
balancing that act.
Yeah, it's simply about being, again, like I said, aware, and also being a little. Um, I think you have to have that foresight, right? That me being firm in this situation is going to lead to what,
Yeah,
versus me being lenient in this situation is going to lead to what. So basically, you are building all of these flow charts in your mind. This is why I say parenting is very hard. Huh? It's not easy. So you're building that because you're seeing essentially what kind of decision tree is this leading you to, right? Because you started with this problem statement, where is the end? If you work, you can also work backwards, right? This is the end result I want, and these are the steps that I'm going to take to get there. So if you have a plan like that, then you can say, okay, this makes sense, and for this outcome I need to be a little bit firm, or for that other outcome I can be a little flexible, because this is not going to be a make or break, right? So I know this is hard to do for every single thing, and if you go to such depths, you can't really calculate everything. But
Yeah.
you have to balance this in terms of the art of it, in terms of the science of it, in terms of your own instinct of it, in terms of what your family situation is like. So parenting is not a one size fits all, and I don't claim to be a parenting expert. I don't think anybody can be. You can coach people, you can support them, you can guide them, but I don't think anybody can be an expert at this, because this relationship is just so beautiful and so magical, and it evolves as it unpacks.
Yeah.
So there is no set rules to this. If you found your balance, if you found your that connection with your child, if you found a rhythm in your family, I think that's good enough.
Yeah. I think as long as children are developing into what I can say, keeping some healthy habits, you can see some. Hey, I can notice some good habits. There are few ones here and there, but okay, overall, confident to speak, share their thoughts and feelings. They are growing up to take some decisions for themselves. You're building a healthy child there, right? And that's the whole thing. And then of course, destiny is something else where they will go and what they will achieve in life. But as a parent, you've given them, it's like a plant, like you're not growing the plant is growing on itself. You're just creating that nurturing environment. You're making sure the weeds are not there, making sure the soil health is taken care, and the plant does its strong job. Right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
I
I hope,
think one more thing I'd like to add there is to really refrain from judging your own self, your life, and your parenting through somebody else's lens. Because, like you said, that we have to look at some broader parameters. Now, your child will not thrive in every single minute detail, right? They may be very good at something, but they may, let's say, for example, they may not be very good at greeting everybody they meet. For example, I'm just saying, but they can be very empathetic, they can help out with the needy, whatever. So there will be people who probably notice what they don't have versus what they do. So you have to sort of understand from your own value system as to whether the child is doing great or good enough, and are you continuing to give them the right kind of foundation, and then leave the rest, like you said, to destiny, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you've done your part like a farmer,
Yeah.
right? You planted the thing, made sure it's taken care. Now, that's all you can do, and leave it to rest. Yeah. And coming to a couple of questions more before we wrap it up. And what qualities? I know, like there are a lot of things that a lot of courses are there. School is doing its thing. Colleges are doing their thing. What qualities can parents help build mindfully in their children?
I think a big one would be building emotional intelligence, because this is something that at least the school curricula that I am aware of, largely in India at least, don't consciously focus on. Like largely, I think the focus is on different syllabi and the textbook sort of work. But how do you build more emotional intelligence? And by that, let's say even the fact that you are building emotional vocabulary of your children, right? If they are feeling a certain way, are they able to express it as closely as possible what they are feeling, rather than saying a generic, yeah, it's all okay, or yeah, I was mad and stuff like that. There are also nuanced feelings, right? Was I elated, or was I disappointed? Was I fearful, was I shy? Like all of those things, if they can put pinpoint what they're feeling. The reason why I say it is important is twofold. One is that they will become more self-aware, and like we're saying, right, we are helping parents become self-aware in their 30s, 40s. But if we can actually give the right vocabulary to our children, they can probably become more self-aware much earlier. And the more self-aware they are, the better they will be, even professionally, I feel, because they will be taking up careers that align with their emotions, with their value system, with their potential also. So emotional vocabulary has a huge sort of larger purpose. And second, like I said, one is self awareness, and second is becoming more aware of other people's emotions. And that is important in your family life, in your further professional life, whatever, wherever you go, you are going to be working in teams, you're going to be working with other people. Being sentient to how people react or what they might be feeling can help you really leverage that in a good way so that you are able to do better for them. And when others feel supported by you, they will obviously look up to you as the leader and so on and so forth. So emotional intelligence really is more for all of that, even for leadership. So if schools are not working in that direction, I think the best way that parents can do this, which is the easiest way I suggest, is through books and storytelling. If you can build a habit of reading, if you can build a culture of telling stories, if you can, you know, dig up old stories that your own grandparents maybe told you, whatever, even, and don't bother about it being moral stories. They don't have to be moral stories. But the more that you tell stories, the more that you read together, you'll be able to build that empathetic bone in you, which basically helps you slip into anybody else's shoes and start feeling it, right? And you would have experienced that, Captain Preetham, that when you read a good book, you feel like you're inside that story, like you're one of the characters. And what is that? That is empathy. You're feeling that.
Yeah, I think you said it nicely that telling your own story doesn't have to be moral stories.
No,
People resonate with your own voice, resonate with because you are directly known to them. You're telling something. Something happened, and that story they'll remember probably for decades, if not a lifetime, right?
absolutely.
And those are the bonding moments, right? There is no moral there. It's just a story that you shared, and so it could be anything. Maybe the father was playing some football, some matches he won in school, college. Somehow, there was some incident, or
Yep.
the mother is telling some incident from her college life. So all this can be great bonding moments in storytelling.
Absolutely. And for younger kids, it could be even shorter stories.
Yeah.
So, in fact, even on my podcast, the Parenting Truth and Dare podcast, while most of my episodes are for parents, I have a few episodes where I've recorded short stories, like, fun stories that kids can just listen to while they are going to sleep, right? Because you want to help them sleep, you don't want to give them access to a video device. So, audio listening to podcasts and all is really good. So, even that can be explored.
I think you covered this emotional way. Speaking about what one thing parents can do, absolutely. I think the social emotional intelligence building is something the parents can definitely help children at home. And to add another element is to especially give them frameworks to think and act, especially for teenagers, even for middle years children. Like, to share an example, I was working with few children, and they were not aware on how to greet and meet people, right? And the parents were like, I don't know. I asked them, did you give them a framework? How to? They said, no, they should know it by themselves how to talk and greet. I said, that is not enough. Tell them very clearly, a guest is coming, how we're going to greet and meet, right? But that's very prescriptive. I said, you have to first follow a method before you can break and create a new style of your own.
Yep.
So then once children started seeing, and okay, so just follow this, greet and meet like this. One, two times, it's just immediate as if it is. By third time, they had their own unique way of greeting and meeting.
Yep.
And that framework, we have to give children for different episodes. There was one episode where I was mentoring this young adult, and she didn't know how to manage her fight with her friend, and who was sulking and who was alone. And if parents are not told how to do it, the child is just sulking. Parents are like, just deal with it, do with it. I said, how? Give her the framework.
Yeah, absolutely.
The framework to deal with this. Okay, when she meets like this, when you run into this, A, B, C, D, and the child came back stressed out, I know how to handle this now,
Yeah.
right? And that gives them the clarity that, okay, these kind of permutation, this is how I do. Is it all the solution? No. May could have been a fifth choice which was not discussed. Fair enough. Then this is how you deal with it.
I think what you touched upon is very important, that uh, it's not about being prescriptive. Like, there's a very fine difference between the authoritarian versus the authoritative. So as long as you have that authority and you're saying that I'm coming from the space of you know knowledge and some concern, but this is a broad framework. Within that, why don't you experiment, right?
Experiment. Yeah.
See what you can do and what you can get out of this. And
Eases,
basically,
eases the you can say the stress. Like let's say an individual has gone to a movie hall, never been to a movie hall in his
yeah,
life. He's got to be absolutely stressed. Oh my God, where do I come out and enter in
yeah,
with
yeah,
this one, right? And if you tell this person, you know what, first time you're going to a movie hall, there will be entrance like this, there will be exit. I
yeah,
don't know where. It may be at the top, maybe down. Never okay, because each movie hall will be different, but there will be an entry and exit for sure.
yeah,
You will
yeah.
not enter otherwise. There will be movie screening at the front. There will be chairs for you to sit. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So immediately comes down.
yeah,
Right? And
absolutely.
that's what parents can do for themselves. So I hope parents have enjoyed, or anybody in fact watching this, hope you enjoyed this session. Don't forget to give this a like, give this a follow, share a comment, share what you liked. It will inspire me, inspire Ritika and everybody else in my team. And before we wrap up, thank you for listening in. Thank you for taking time out. Don't forget to watch the recording if you haven't started, from the start. There are a lot of nuggets that Ritika shares. And finally, Ritika, thank you so much for taking time out. Thank you for being here and sharing all this wisdom with me.
Thank you. Really appreciate all the effort that you're putting in and the time that you gave me as well.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. See you next time.